All right, so are you ready to like dive into something kind of different today?
Always up for a challenge.
Okay, good, because we're looking at this proposed bill in the U.S. Senate
Uh-huh.
called the Bitcoin Act of 2024.
Okay.
And it's not just about Bitcoin, like, that internet money everyone's talking about.
Right.
It's like bigger than that.
Yeah, I see that.
It's about how the U.S. sees its financial future,
Yeah.
in a world that's like changing so fast.
It really is. It's fascinating how this bill is sparking a debate about the foundations of global finance. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But like,
Yeah.
before we get too deep into the crypto weeds, let's just like set the stage.
Okay.
So this is a Senate bill, right?
Okay.
Which means it's a proposal,
Mm-hmm.
not a done deal yet.
Yeah.
It's like a blueprint
Okay.
that still needs to be approved, debated,
Yeah.
maybe even redesigned
Right.
before it can actually become law.
That's a really good point because a lot of people don't realize that bills go through a whole process
Yeah.
of committees and votes. Totally.
Before they can even be signed into law.
So what's got everyone buzzing about this particular blueprint?
Yeah.
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
The U.S. holding a strategic reserve,
Yeah.
not of oil,
Okay.
not of gold, but of Bitcoin.
Wow.
1 million Bitcoins.
Seriously.
Like they're building a digital Fort Knox.
That's a bold move for sure.
Right.
Historically, countries have held reserves of gold
Mm-hmm.
as a way to stabilize their currencies,
Yeah,
protect against economic uncertainty.
makes sense.
But this bill suggests that Bitcoin, with its limited supply and growing global acceptance, could play a similar role.
In the digital age.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're talking about more than just buying some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's like the U.S. potentially shifting its entire financial strategy,
Right.
recognizing that the world is going digital.
It really is.
But wouldn't storing that much Bitcoin be like
Yeah.
a security nightmare?
Huge security risk.
Right.
That's where the bill gets into the details.
It emphasizes a decentralized and physically secure storage system,
Uh-huh.
spreading the Bitcoin across multiple locations
Okay.
to minimize risk.
Got it. So like having safety deposit boxes
Exactly.
in different banks,
Got it.
each with a piece of the key
Yes,
to the overall treasure.
that's a great analogy.
So no one can just hack in and steal all the Bitcoin in one go.
Exactly. And to ensure transparency, the bill proposes a proof of reserve system using cryptography.
So it's like,
It's like a public ledger that proves the government actually holds the Bitcoin, it claims,
gotcha.
preventing any funny business.
Yeah, transparency is key, especially when you're dealing with something as new and potentially volatile as Bitcoin.
Absolutely. People are going to want assurances that this is being handled responsibly.
For sure. And like, this isn't about the government coming for your personal Bitcoin stash, right?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
The bill specifically protects private ownership,
Okay.
assuring everyone that this is about incorporating Bitcoin into the U.S. financial system, not replacing it.
All right, good to know. So where's the U.S. going to get the money to buy 1 million Bitcoins, though?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It can't be cheap.
No, it's not. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
The bill suggests using discretionary surplus funds from the Federal Reserve.
So the Fed just has extra cash lying around.
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that, but essentially, yes.
And instead of investing it in, traditional assets,
Right.
they decide to buy Bitcoin.
That's the proposal.
It's a pretty big shift in how the Fed typically operates.
It is, and it reflects a growing recognition that the financial landscape is changing,
Yeah.
and traditional approaches may need to adapt.
But wait, there's more.
There's always more.
Tell me they're not printing more money to buy Bitcoin.
Not quite. It involves the Federal Reserve's gold certificates. You remember those? They represent ownership of a certain amount of gold.
Right.
The bill proposes that the Fed hands these certificates over to the Treasury, which would then issue new certificates reflecting the current market value of that gold.
So they're basically updating the value of those gold certificates
Exactly.
to reflect the current gold price.
Yeah.
And then the difference in value
Right.
between the old and new certificates would be sent to the Treasury,
Yes.
creating a pool of funds for this Bitcoin purchase program.
It's like financial alchemy.
Some creative accounting, for sure. But let's get back to the Bitcoin itself.
Okay.
The bill mentions something about forks and airdrops.
Right.
Can you break those down for us in plain English?
Sure. So think of a Bitcoin fork, like a software update
Okay.
that creates a whole new version of Bitcoin,
Got it.
kind of like a branching path.
Okay.
And an airdrop is basically when you get free crypto coins.
Free money.
Well, sort of just for holding Bitcoin like a bonus
Nice.
or a surprise gift.
Okay. I'm starting to get the lingo down. So why are forks and airdrops important in the context of this bill, though?
Good question. The bill specifies that any digital assets created through Bitcoin forks or airdrops
Uh-huh.
should also be included in the reserve.
So even if Bitcoin evolves
Right.
or new cryptocurrencies emerge,
Exactly.
the government holds on to those too.
It's like saying we're investing in the entire Bitcoin ecosystem, not just a snapshot in time.
That's pretty forward thinking.
It is. It's about building a flexible reserve that can adapt to the ever-changing landscape of digital assets.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the idea of a Bitcoin reserve to the intricate details of gold certificates and forks.
It's a lot to take in.
But we're just getting started.
We're just scratching the surface.
There's so much more to unpack.
Indeed. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore the potential impact of this bill on the U.S. dollar itself.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Will holding Bitcoin strengthen the greenback, or could it actually undermine its global dominance?
Buckle up. Things are about to get even more interesting.
They are, so we're back.
Back in the crypto saddle.
And ready to dig deeper.
Into the Bitcoin Act of 2024.
We've talked about how the strategic Bitcoin reserve would work.
The nuts and bolts.
But now let's get into the why.
Yeah, why would the U.S. government even consider holding Bitcoin in the first place?
It's the million Bitcoin question, isn't it?
Well, we've touched on some potential benefits, right?
Yeah.
Like diversifying U.S. assets, maybe giving the dollar a boost.
Right.
But what about the risks?
Oh, there are definitely risks.
I mean, Bitcoin's famous for being a little unpredictable.
That's one way to put it.
Volatile, right?
Yeah. Bitcoin's volatility is a major concern for critics of this bill.
Makes sense.
They argue that it's way too risky to hold an asset that can swing so wildly in value.
Yeah, you could lose a fortune.
Exactly. And imagine those nail-biting price drops we saw a few years back.
Oh, yeah.
Now imagine that happening.
With millions of taxpayer dollars.
On the line.
Not a good look.
No, not at all. And then there's the whole energy consumption issue.
Oh, right. Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. Yeah, it requires a lot of computing power.
Which means?
A hefty energy bill.
So critics argue that a Bitcoin reserve would kind of go against the U.S.'s commitment to fighting climate change?
It's a valid concern for sure.
So there are definitely some downsides to think about.
Definitely.
But the people pushing for this bill seem to believe that the potential rewards outweigh the risks.
Right. They point to Bitcoin's limited supply.
Only 21 million will ever exist.
Exactly. That scarcity, they argue, makes it a good hedge against inflation.
Okay, so like digital gold.
Exactly. Its value is protected because you can't just print more of it.
Right. Governments can print more money whenever they want.
Exactly.
But Bitcoin's supply is fixed.
Built-in scarcity.
That traditional currencies just don't have.
And proponents also highlight Bitcoin's growing global acceptance.
Yeah, more and more businesses are starting to use it.
Even some countries.
They're arguing that a Bitcoin reserve would position the U.S. as a leader in this emerging digital economy.
A front runner.
Attracting investment and fostering innovation.
It's about not getting left behind.
Right, as the financial world evolves.
Exactly like how countries competed to explore new territories centuries ago.
Now it's a race.
To dominate the digital landscape.
Like a modern-day gold rush.
You could say that.
And the U.S. needs to stake its claim now to maintain its global influence.
In the 21st century.
It's really interesting how this debate kind of mirrors so many historical clashes between tradition and innovation.
It does. You have the old guard who see Bitcoin as risky and speculative. And then you have the pioneers who believe it represents the future of finance.
That's a classic tale of disruption.
It is. And the outcome of this debate could have major implications for the U.S. dollar.
Which brings us back to the question.
The big one.
How would a Bitcoin reserve actually impact the greenback?
Yeah, will holding Bitcoin boost the dollar, or could it lead to its downfall?
It's that question.
There are no easy answers. Some analysts believe that holding Bitcoin could actually strengthen the dollar.
Wait, really?
Yeah, if the U.S. is seen as embracing innovation and leading in the digital asset space, it could boost confidence in the dollar's long-term stability.
So holding a digital asset could actually benefit the traditional currency.
It's counterintuitive, but potentially, yes. It's about projecting an image of adaptability and forward thinking.
Got it.
However, others worry that a Bitcoin reserve could ultimately undermine the dollar.
Okay, I see where they're coming from.
They fear that if Bitcoin gains widespread adoption, it could eventually replace the dollar as the dominant global currency.
That's a pretty dramatic scenario.
It is, but it's not unprecedented.
Has something like that ever happened before?
Throughout history, we've seen dominant currencies rise and fall.
Like what?
The British pound sterling, for example,
Okay, yeah.
was once the world's leading currency,
Right.
but it was eventually overtaken by the US dollar after World War II.
So history shows that even something as seemingly stable as global currencies can change over time.
Exactly. It's like empires.
They rise, they fall.
And new ones emerge.
Whoa.
And that's why this debate about a Bitcoin reserve is so crucial.
It really makes you think.
It forces us to think critically about the future of money and the role the US dollar will play in a rapidly changing world.
The bill also includes a pretty interesting detail.
Oh, yeah.
A 20-year minimum holding period for the Bitcoin in the reserve.
That's a long time.
What's the thinking behind that?
It's about demonstrating stability and long-term confidence in Bitcoin.
Okay.
The bill's authors believe that holding on to it for an extended period would signal a strong commitment to this asset and potentially encourage others to invest as well.
I can see that.
It also prevents the government from using the Bitcoin for short-term gains.
Or political maneuvering.
Exactly. It's like saying we're serious about this and we're in it for the long haul.
But it's not a permanent lockup, right?
Correct. After that 20-year period, the Secretary of the Treasury has to make recommendations to Congress about what to do next.
Like keep holding, sell a portion.
Maybe even release it gradually back into the market.
So many options.
And even then, there are restrictions to prevent any sudden moves.
To prevent like market chaos.
Exactly. The bill states that even after the 20-year holding period, the government can't sell more than 10% of the Bitcoin every 2 years.
So it's all about managing risk.
And ensuring a controlled approach to handling this valuable.
And let's be honest, still somewhat experimental asset.
That's a good point. This whole bill is like a crash course.
Cryptocurrency economics and global finance.
It really highlights the complex challenges and opportunities facing the U.S. in the 21st century.
The decisions made today about digital assets could have a ripple effect for decades to come.
Absolutely.
You know what strikes me is that this bill, whether it becomes law or not, has sparked a really important conversation.
I agree.
It's forcing policymakers, economists, and even everyday people like us to really grapple with the changing nature of money and the rise of digital assets.
And we're all part of this conversation now.
And in a world where information travels at the speed of light, it's more important than ever to stay informed about these developments.
And engage in these discussions.
The future of finance is being shaped right now.
And we all have a stake in it.
But there's one crucial aspect of this bill we haven't really explored yet.
Which is
the whole transparency and accountability thing.
Oh, right. How can we be sure that the government will handle this Bitcoin responsibly?
That's a great question. The bill proposes something called a proof of reserve system.
Interesting.
Let's dive into that next and explore how it aims to ensure that the government's Bitcoin holdings are managed in a way that's open and trustworthy.
Sounds good.
So we're talking about trust, right?
Transparency, accountability.
Because when it comes to the U.S. government holding, millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, people are going to want to know
Of course.
that this whole thing's legit.
Absolutely. That's where this proof of reserve system comes in.
Okay, tell me more.
It's designed to provide that transparency and accountability everyone's looking for.
So no funny business.
Right. Think of it as a way to cryptographically prove that the government actually owns the Bitcoin
Okay.
it claims to have in this strategic Bitcoin reserve.
So no disappearing Bitcoin. No secret government wallets.
Not if the system works as intended.
Okay, good to know.
The bill outlines a process for publishing quarterly reports,
Oh, interesting.
detailing the government's total Bitcoin holdings, all transactions,
Okay.
and even proof that they control the private keys needed to access the Bitcoin.
Hold on, private keys? I haven't heard that term in a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Remind me what those are again.
So imagine a private key as like the deed to a house.
Okay,
Whoever holds that deed owns the house.
right.
In the world of Bitcoin, private keys are like those deeds.
Gotcha.
They give you control over the Bitcoin.
So proving control of the keys is essential.
Absolutely essential to demonstrating ownership.
Okay, that makes sense. So these quarterly reports would be like a public record, allowing anyone to see exactly what the government is doing with its Bitcoin.
It's all out in the open, and it's not just about publishing numbers.
Okay, what else?
The reports would include cryptographic proof that ties those numbers to the actual Bitcoin holdings.
So you can't just make up numbers.
Exactly. It's like having a digital fingerprint that verifies the authenticity of the information.
Okay, so we've got this high level of transparency.
Right.
But are we just taking the government's word for it?
That's a fair question. The bill addresses this by requiring an independent third-party auditor
Okay.
with expertise in cryptography to verify the accuracy of these reports.
So they're like the financial detectives making sure everything adds up.
Precisely double-checking the government's work.
That does make me feel better. But is that the only layer of oversight?
Nope, there's more. The Comptroller General of the United States, which is an independent government agency, would also conduct regular oversight.
So like watchdogs.
Exactly, making sure everything's being done according to the rules.
And that no one is getting up to any shenanigans.
Right.
Wow, they're really building in safeguards at every level.
They're anticipating a lot of scrutiny.
Well, yeah, this is a pretty new concept.
It is, and building trust is essential when you're talking about something as revolutionary as a national Bitcoin reserve.
That's a big deal.
Transparency and accountability are key to gaining public acceptance.
And ensuring this whole thing succeeds.
It's amazing to think how far we've come in such a short time.
I know, right? Bitcoin was just this fringe idea.
Like internet monopoly money.
Now we're talking about it being part of the U.S. government's financial strategy.
It's a testament to how quickly technology can change the world.
It really is.
And how traditional ideas about money and finance are being challenged.
Like never before.
Whether you're a Bitcoin enthusiast or a skeptic, you can't deny the impact digital assets are having on the global economy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Bitcoin Act of 2024, I have one question for you, our listener.
What do they think?
Is a strategic Bitcoin reserve a brilliant idea, a risky gamble, or something in between?
The future of finance is being written right now.
And it's up to all of us to be part of the conversation.
To shape the world we want to live in.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
Stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop learning.